And that music alone is enough reason to pay for the premium version of Restream.
I was going to say, so I'm quite glad about it though. It's very meditative.
It is.
It me out quite a lot before we start.
Exactly. But then it also means when you do start, you're not talking about the terrible music, which is not what we're here to talk about. We're not here to talk about kind of new age 80s synth inspired sci-fi type music. Oh no.
Quite enjoyed it.
It was very good. However, what we are here to talk about, Steph Ashmore.
Hello, Ben Maynard.
Is the talk that you're giving at Agile Manchester.
Agile Manchester, yes.
Yes.
Happening this week from Wednesday to Friday in the heart of Manchester. Yeah, 3 days.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I've got the joy of fighting against the Friday afternoon pub slot because my workshop's Friday afternoon. So I've got to make sure it's really engaging.
Yeah, and free beer, perhaps.
Yeah, sure. That's. I'm sure they'll get on board with that.
Yeah. So why are you here? Well, I heard
how to deliver true value.
Well, you should mention value, Steph.
Mm-hmm.
Your workshop title is really interesting.
Mm-hmm.
So from a project to product agility, and I think that these are topics which many people have been interested in, continue to be interested in, and will continue to be interested in because this is a big challenge. I interviewed a chap called James Lutit for the podcast the other day, leading impactful teams, achieving low stress success in project management. And it was really interesting talking to someone that really came from that strong project management background. And his views on project management were really different to, I think, some of my views on project management. And I think that probably for some people that are listening, either live now, hi, if you're listening live, feel free to comment, ask us any questions you like as we go through. And for those of people who are going to be watching this back at some point, I think maybe could we start this, Steph, by you pitching your workshop and maybe giving a bit of color, a bit of definition as to how you view kind of projects and products and product agility?
Sure. Well, that's the point. I think project and product separately has already kind of taken root, and it's definitely already picked up within industries and organizations. There's already an idea of this shift from taking a project mindset to a product mindset. People already understand the difference there from fixed scope, fixed budgets and timelines to a more user data, user research, focus on solving user problems approach, right? However, product agility, what we want to do there is bridge those two worlds. We want to take that user-centric focus and all of that data that we're getting within user research and figure out how to integrate it into our delivery teams that are actually doing the work. So, and this can allow those teams to then continuous delivery, but we're bringing in continuously delivering true value. So over the course of the workshop, we'll go through a few practical tools that you can use and strategies to kind of take that shift towards bringing in product focus into the delivery teams.
And Steph, this isn't stuff which you've just sat at home and made up. This is stuff that you've got some experience in. Well, I mean, yes, you have sat at home and made it up, or sat somewhere else and made it up. Maybe you stood sometimes and made it up. However, you do have relevant practical experience.
Yeah, sure. So I've been in delivery management and project management for most of my career in various situations. So in product teams, back when it wasn't really called product, it was more like SaaS, and people were a SaaS product. And then into agency work, working within teams, delivery teams, where you're so removed from the end user that you think about delivering value for your customer as your customer instead of the end user of that customer. So you don't really have, there's very little product focus within the agency environment or in external teams when you think about delivery, because you think about delivering the project that you've been asked and contracted to do rather than asking questions around what is it that your users need. That's actually part of one of the modules on the workshop, which we can go into in a little bit.
It's so interesting, because when I think of project management, it's on my own biases, my own mental model, like lived experience, is that project management and project managers always seem to be about stakeholder management, but the user and customer was never really spoken about from that perspective. And I think that's what made Agile and also a product mindset so appealing within certain parts of large organizations where I worked, is because we did talk about the customer, and the customer not being the organization or team or group or whomever you're handing over your piece of the puzzle to. That's a real dangerous thinking, and I think it's because of the way organizations are designed. When you see the customer as that team over there who need to finish, you pick up the baton from me, they're not your customer.
Yeah.
If you view them as your customer and you get into this weird relationship, you try and serve them. How do you know what they want is actually serving the real customer or user? And it's a difficult one with projects, and when they're in these big organizations, mostly from my experience, where that customer lens does get really lost. And so if you think about it, and Steph, I'm looking at your modules here as well for the workshop. Like, what do you think then makes for success when it comes to product?
When it comes to product delivery, I think so. After this, I'll answer this, and then we'll go through the module so people understand what we're talking about. In product delivery, like you kind of mentioned, it's harder in large-scale organizations to bring in that vision focus, that user focus, stuff that comes from the top a lot of the time. And how do you get that same mindset? How do you get that same passion for the product that you might have at a senior leadership level? How do you get that same passion into the people on a delivery level, like on a lower scale, if we're talking organizational structure? So how do we get those teams and individuals to understand the reasoning behind why this specific feature is important? But let's put a pin in that for a sec and go through. So one of the things I wanted to actually tell you about, which I haven't told you about yet, is kind of related to how do you bring the user to the forefront of what you are doing when you're delivering I'm going to say product, because I'm going to refer to my workshop as my product. So my 2-hour slot at Agile Manchester is around exempling how we can bring product agility into that space. So when I started creating it, I discovered very quickly that there was a lot I could talk about, right? There's so much that we can talk about within product agility. And I created nearly 5 modules in a 2-hour workshop. So our modules are, communication for product success, data-driven outcomes over vanity outputs, building for value, how siloed teams and cross-functional teams work together, and beyond project delivery, partnering with clients for product-led outcomes. So what I want to find out from my attendees on Friday at the very beginning, and this is something we do in TBR, whenever we do in-person TBR training, I'm going to put out all of the key takeaways from the workshop, and they'll be scattered around the room, and all of the attendees will get a vote on what's most valuable to them to take away from this workshop today. Do they want to learn about identifying and prioritizing metrics, or are they more interested in communication tools and practical advice for communicating down the product vision? Because if I've got 2 hours to deliver value, I want to make sure that I'm delivering the most value I can to each attendee. So then once they've voted and we've decided, okay, actually 75% of the people in this room are really focused on shifting team mindsets, that means that we can then tailor the module structure for the next 2 hours to focus on those areas. So I kind of see that as my small scale example of this is product agility. This is me taking user data and directly applying it to my product.
So if I thought of a traditional project, which is how many people create workshops and training, which would be to say, these are all the things that I've been told I need to go in there, all the things that I have to then do. And I'm going to decide what I'm going to do for each of them, and I'm going to plan each one out, and I'm going to track how long each thing takes, and I'm going to go through all the things and spend the time that I decided I was going to spend on it to squeeze into my allotted time, and that's the plan, and we're going to stick to it.
I have a fixed time and I have a fixed budget.
Yeah.
Instead of that, I'm going to focus on what is most valuable.
Yeah.
And so of the 4 modules, they can each be tailored between 15 and maybe 40 minutes. So some of them we can just run over and we can talk about, or other ones like building teams where the attendees are actually going to have a creative brief and they're going to work in a siloed team and they're going to pass information as if they are a group of siloed product design engineering teams, and then try as a cross-functional team. Maybe if that's something that the attendees vote on, of this is something I really want to learn more about, we'll spend more time on that module.
So yeah, very adaptable.
I like to think so. It's also my way of getting around the fact that I had way too much content for a 2-hour workshop.
Well, that's good. So there's a menu, and then you're going to prioritize what they want, which is lovely.
Yeah. So, which module would you like to know more about? I haven't told you. The good thing about this webinar is kind of, for me and you, like a live chat. Yeah. So we haven't even spoken about this yet.
We haven't. So one thing that jumps out at me, and I think this is, an interesting one, is module 2.
Oh God, okay.
It's something where hopefully you've got some like practical examples of different types of datum, which you could suggest as. In module 2 is data-driven outcomes over vanity outputs. Excuse me. And I think that this is a really interesting and important topic. I think that there is projects love a metric, but they were always quite obvious metrics to do with the type of construction you've now created to get something from A to B. It was about tracking from A to B. I think in the agility world, I think there is an increasing love of decent metrics around things like lead time, perhaps cycle time, those types of things, but they're still very broad and vague, and what you actually the context around is often lost a little bit. To what things like flow and lead time, great, but what does it mean in practice? In the product world, there's a ton of stuff which people could measure, loads of stuff. So how do you in your workshop bring those worlds together into the module of data-driven outcomes?
Do you want to see?
I would love to see.
Okay, let's have a quick look, see if I can share it. This is also a little bit, it feels like a little bit of a behind the scenes of how we build training and workshops. So it's not finished before you start mentioning that. Like, I've still got notes everywhere, but yeah, I'll give you a sneak peek. So we're talking data-driven outcomes, measuring what matters for product success, right? So like you mentioned, like everyone loves a metric. We all love things that we can monitor and see, oh, that got bigger, or oh, this affected, and we try and rationalize why something is working over something else. So something I put together for Agile Projects and Delivery Management for the APDM course that we will soon be launching on 𝐏𝐫𝐨𝐻𝐿 was looking for sparks. So if you want to find out whether your metric is an actionable metric and not a vanity metric, we look for it to be statistical, practical, attainable, relevant, key results focused, and strategic. So the module for Agile Manchester is probably going to focus on us. It's probably going to focus on running through these points and then identifying some actionable metrics within the session. So I'll create some vanity metrics, and I'll have the attendees try and figure out which ones are vanity focused, so lack substance, probably overly simplistic. We can't really use it to measure any success. They often look like success, things like website visits or social media followers are used quite a lot. With delivery teams, it's things like how many story points did we deliver this sprint? And they often look like you can be being successful without actually pointing towards whether you delivered anything of true value. And some of the things I liked about Sparks was the relation back to the organization. So making sure that they're strategic, right? That we can turn that data that we've just gathered from, I don't know, from our sprint or from whatever it is that we've been tracking. And can we turn that data back into something to drive the next decision that we make within the tool or within the team? Another thing, that's actually a good point to mention, these don't have to just be about features or engineering or sprints. They could be about team morale. What is your overall company turnover? Like, are you also delivering value at a human and a team level, not just at a product level to your end users? And I think as a delivery manager, as well as a team member who's been in there, the key point for this for me was when you actually move away from measuring. In fact, I'm going to come full screen for this. When you move away from measuring vanity metrics as a team, you are able to open yourself up to focusing on actual value for the end user, for the business. You're no longer blinkered vision on making sure your team, throughput's one that gets used a lot, story points, that's one that gets used a lot. You're no longer focusing on making sure your team just delivers and delivers. You actually manage to focus on bringing in true value. And what is it that we put out this sprint? How many people are using it? Did they like it? Do they have any feedback? Did we generate any feedback? And you're able to then fuel that side of delivery rather than just the pressure to continuously deliver features.
I suppose then you need that freedom from a fixed scope to enable you to then make the changes based upon the data that you're discovering.
I think freedom is a great word that I've not used at all, but I think it's a good perspective to take on vanity metrics versus actionable metrics, right? The freedom that it then gives you to pivot maybe from, oh, this is a line of work that would help us achieve our statistical goals, whereas this line of work gives us the freedom to actually deliver something that the user wants or will be beneficial to the organization as a whole. I think freedom is a great way to look at it.
Yeah, because that's the thing, you can come up with all kinds of ideas if you're any kind of digital product creation and delivery. But if you have to deliver a scope and you're being held to account for delivering that scope, then you can find it all out, and it's just going to go into the big bucket of stuff we'll think about doing next time if we get another piece of the budget to do it next time.
Yeah, and I think we can use the adaptive workshop example, right, that I mentioned a minute ago. If I find out during my user research of my attendees that nobody is bothered about Building teams, if that is the module no one wants to go over, that's fine. I can take that out completely. It gives me that freedom to then completely remove something from my product, which I know we've spoken about in the past, about you can actually add value. I would be adding value to my product by removing a whole module because they would find it much more valuable to them. Speaking of personal value, I have an interesting question for you.
Okay.
So, in fact, and then I'm going to, okay. First of all, what is a product you really enjoy using?
A product I enjoy using. It's changed recently, actually. Digital product or any product?
Any product. Sorry, I totally put you on the spot.
It would be my new barbecue.
Oh, nice. Nice. Why is it so great?
It's got an adjustable height grill, so I can move it up and down. It's brilliant. Revelate, and it's long. Not really long. Not like
So a lot of these people won't know that Ben's actually deceptively tall. So is the fact that your barbecue has an adjustable height, is this?
It's a different type of adjustable height. I mean, I still have to crouch down, but it means that I can move the coals further away from the food or closer to the food, you see. So yeah, when they're fresh and they're hot, I can move it down. When it gets a bit cooler, I can move it up. And it just means when I'm cooking lots of stuff, I can have it all loads of room, and I can then move the coals far to or close to or further away from the food. And it's got a lid. It's got a bottle opener built into it. It's
key selling point.
Yeah, it's good. It's got little hooks, which I couldn't decide whether they were to hang utensils or to, I don't know, hang meat or vegetables or something. I wasn't sure, but there's a lot of hooks. I can't think anyone needs that many utensils or tea towels.
So there's a lot of great features. So how does this product make your life better?
It means that I can cook food for like 20 children in one go.
That's great.
Yeah, and then it means that then they're fed, and then when that's gone, I can then turn into more adult barbecue, and it's got a smoker on it. It's kind of like they know all the things that a sad middle-aged white man in Surrey really wants in a barbecue, and they put it all into a barbecue.
So what I heard is gives you time efficiency.
Yeah.
And allows you to connect socially.
Yeah.
And so, and this is a question that I ask you because I'm gonna be putting this out on LinkedIn. I'll be putting it out a lot at Agile Manchester. And at the beginning of the workshop, I plan on asking this question to all of the attendees as well. Because I think when we think about value, often we're quite internal creatures, right? We think about what's valuable to us. And we forget that other people value different things. Time efficiency is probably one that a lot of people can relate to, and being able to connect socially is something that a lot of people relate to. But I think if you'd asked, my answers to those questions are a bit different on the product that makes my life great. And it shows how we need to be able to understand value and its many facets. Is that the right word?
Yeah.
And understand that to be able to deliver value, we have to understand that, right? You have to understand that other people, you can't just say, I'm going to deliver one thing, and it be valuable to everyone or all of your users or all of your customers. It has to be adaptive.
Yeah. It does. And I think it's a very difficult one, though, when you're faced with prioritization decisions. If you lack focus. So if And I don't know if the people who made this barbecue put this level of thought into it or not, whether they did the user research. I don't know. Maybe it just gradually evolved over the years and they added more and more bits to it. But it does really suit the type of situation that me and my peers around where I live find ourselves in.
Yeah.
And there's lots of stuff on there that they potentially could have added. There are things they could have made slightly, could have made it slightly better built in certain ways. But they've only got a certain amount of cost. Cost. They've only got a certain amount of money that they can invest in designing it and creating it, and there's only a certain amount of money that people will want to spend for that. Because it's quite, it didn't cost. It cost enough for me to wince when I ordered it. I mean, it took like a couple £100, but that's a lot of money for people.
I think
it's that research and really understanding your user, but then also understanding that how do you, if you haven't got infinite money, how do you focus on the right person rather than trying to focus on everyone?
Yeah. See, I felt like we were going down this path. And it's not something I cover in great depth in the workshop because it's a massive topic, right? But it is something I probably put to you, to be honest, and like just the experience that we have working with the clients at 𝐏𝐫𝐸. I think you can try and become a please all product and a please all company. But you're never going to be able to do that. You're going to struggle to put, even if you are delivering value constantly, what people want from your tool is going to change. Like take massive tools like Jira, for example. This divides companies. Like it's a very love-hate relationship with a tool because some people love it and think it's great for all of its features, and that's not what other people want. They want a more tailored, personal approach. And you are always going to have that problem once you start to scale. I think what you can do as an organization is have the data to understand which is your largest user group, who, if that's what you're aiming for, and which one of those align mostly to your values. So if your value is to deliver, I don't know, let's say like something like Spotify, right? Deliver a vast array of music to listeners. If you suddenly start trying to tailor your feature lists and your features to niche artists, you're no longer actually aligning with that vision. And you might still be delivering value to a subset of users, but you've moved away from your core value. I've completely just made up that's what Spotify vision, but I didn't know. What do you think?
Yeah, I think you're right. I think it's harder when things start to get bigger, and this is where I suppose I always really liked what Radhika Dutt kind of wrote about in radical product thinking, which is who is the one person whose life you really want to change, whose world do you really want to affect, and why do you want to affect it, and why is the situation they're in now totally unacceptable? And if you can find that one person and have those as the ultimate beneficiary of what it is you're trying to do, then everyone else that you can think of that needs to be satisfied in some way, that's just your strategy. They're the people you need to talk to along the way to kind of get to that ultimate person. But I think that focus becomes so much easier, and prioritization becomes so much easier, and making decisions about what's in and what's out becomes so much easier when you have a single person, like core customer segment, that you can really focus on really affecting their lives, and whatever that might be. And I'm going to put this onto link up. Try showing it through here. There's a book which I have to admit I have only I'm almost finished it now, called Radical Focus, which is about OKRs. And the really interesting thing about Radical Focus is, one, it's a little novel, but they go through a fictional tale of a startup who create tea. They don't create tea. They distribute tea, and they're all about the farmers and investing in small businesses and kind of making sure that tea farmers get a good deal, and they share a really great product. And they start focusing on restaurants, but the restaurants don't buy from them.
Mm-hmm.
And so then they say, what do we do? And then, well, the restaurants don't buy from them because they're known quantity. So then they start getting deals with suppliers, and it creates a rift within the founders. The guy who's all about the quality of the product wants to keep going to restaurants, but the person who's been out of the two founders who took the CEO title is like, well, we need to have a company.
Yeah.
Now, interestingly, in the whole story is that the ultimate beneficiary here, it seemed, were the tea farmers.
Mm-hmm.
Everything they were doing was talking about satisfying the tea farmer. But then the big decisions came when they realized they couldn't have a business if they were just selling to restaurants at the moment, because no one knew them, no one trusted them, and they couldn't get the sales. So they had to decide to change their strategy to working with big suppliers, which pissed off the guy who was all about quality, because historically the big suppliers don't treat the farmers well.
Yeah.
But
I think. Sorry, go.
No, I was going to say that. So their job became easier when they had very few OKRs and a single idea. So this is the person whose life we're trying to improve, and we may pivot and change our strategy for achieving that vision, but the vision remains the same.
Okay. It gives me many thoughts. The first one I kind of want to bring us to is we started talking about, right, the larger scale vision and then the delivery teams, and how do we have that communication between them, right? And we're kind of touching on it there in what I've called in the first module on communication as storytelling, right? We know in product world, storytelling is something that's already known, and we create personas, we create user stories, and that's kind of in Agile as well, I suppose, in delivery teams. But we kind of take that to another level, and understanding things like transformational tales. So bringing those personas into a powerful story that your managers, team managers, heads of, like, they all understand this narrative, to be able to illustrate the positive impact that a product or feature is having on users' experiences, very much like if you were creating a story. So have that introduction of the character, have that they are faced with a big problem or life-changing event, how do they overcome it, and evoke the emotion within your teams. Now, one of the points that I'll be making as I suppose as an aside during the workshop is it's all well and good having these tools, and they can be very helpful. For example, one of the other sections that we'll be looking at is like elevator pitching. We know about elevator pitching and we know what it is. However, it's not enough just to have one when it comes to communicating from the large scale organization down to delivery teams. If you go to a delivery team and say, this is our vision, this is our elevator pitch, understand it, that's not captivating anyone. No one on the delivery team, no dev, no scrum master is going to really be engaged with that. However, elevator pitch drafting, as I've called it in the workshop, is bringing everybody together to create that, so that everyone can then become part of the narrative, and they then understand the problems and the characters. And then when they're in their day-to-day work, they might not remember what the outcome of that drafting was. They might not remember hopefully they will remember the one sentence. But the key is that they'll be thinking about those characters. They'll be thinking about that narrative and the problems that they're trying to solve. So if you're trying to get your engineering team to be more creative and be more, how can we solve this problem? Then if they know who the user is that they're trying to solve that problem for, they can try and deliver that value. Does that make sense?
Yeah. I mean, what we're saying here is really getting to I mean, it's a thread that's run through all the conversations that we've had. It's about really getting to know your customer and your user and trying to keep that at the forefront. How do you kind of get teams understanding more of that?
Yeah.
It's incredibly important. I mean, when I look at module 4, you mentioned partnering with clients. What's typically clients versus customers versus users? What does that mean?
There's so many, throughout the past year of over a year now of us working together, there are so many misconceptions that I've just throughout my career known. Do you remember when I had the little mini breakdown because I realized I wasn't a project manager, and I'd been a project manager for years, but according to definitions. But I think about how we define stakeholders, right? In agencies, we think about stakeholders like just our customers. It's not like when you actually look at a definition of that, it's anybody who has an impact, positive or negative, from the outcome of your project. It's then it's a very wide scope of people. So to just say stakeholder, often, unless you align your team on that terminology, to just say stakeholder is going to make people think of just customers. They're not going to think of, especially in an agency environment, right, where you're doing tenders, you're focused on keeping your customer happy. They've come to you with a project brief, and you're fulfilling that project, that brief. Because a lot of the time, those agencies are doing tenders and responding to, I've forgotten the word for it.
RFPs and stuff.
Yeah. And they just want to deliver what that customer wants because they want to keep them as a customer. And then they want to continue to work with them in future. However, how many times do they ask for the reasoning behind the scope? I would hazard a guess that most companies don't, because it sounds like you're questioning why. It sounds like you're questioning them. But what we want to know is, if you want that project to be successful, does it deliver what your customers want? And if you can, so even if you're going through that contracting period with as an agency and a client, can you ask those questions? Who are your users? Understand their users. All the time you hear agencies say, oh, we're your technological partner. And they're not, they're just fulfilling a project. If you're a technological partner with a client, then go and find out who their users are. Help them do you have any product people in your agency? Go and do product research, go and do user research, add that in. Or have a more agile focused contract where you focus on delivering the value rather than delivering the scope. Can you deliver something that's less? I think maybe where agencies struggle is they don't want to say, okay, we'll just do a month and we'll see if it's successful, because they've got a business to run, they've got staff to pay. I get that. So if they can do a 2-year-long project, fixed scope, 2-year long, and tie that in, it's better for the business. I get that. But is it delivering value?
Yeah. I wonder if that's one of the main reasons, is that security. And especially once you start getting investment or getting other people involved in the organization, then you have targets to reach, and you want to make sure you can get some more funding at some point in the future. So you need to make sure that you've got some money coming in and a good, compelling story as to how you're going to keep that money coming in. And I think that does orient people to much more pilot high, sell it cheap, or the more contractual stuff, because it makes us feel comfortable. I think there's only certain types of characters that are like, I don't know, we'll take the riskier, but arguably potentially more valuable road.
But I question this, because if you have a bad experience with any brand or product, if your barbecue turns out to be a hunk of crap, you're not going to buy the next version. You're going to go elsewhere.
Yeah.
And I think it can be very similar with agencies, with external development teams. And especially if that client doesn't have a strong product focus, when the project inevitably fails, you end up blaming the agency, you end up blaming the development. Oh, it didn't do what we thought it was going to do. Well, that can also be the case a lot of the time, but it can also be that it did do what you asked, but what you asked was not actually what anyone needed. Therefore, it was unsuccessful.
Yeah. Yes, it's the mindset of the people that are engaging as well, and the lack of knowing anything better. This belief that it'll be different next time, so we'll just do the same thing again. I don't know. And then we're very good at humans as forgetting painful stuff. And optimism can be a great thing that really helps to like pull us through. And it's, you talk about products though that maybe don't perform or aren't great. This was always surprised me about Fitbit. Is because I had a Fitbit for a while, and it broke a lot. And most people over the years I know have had Fitbits say, "Oh, it breaks a lot," and then oh yeah, it breaks a lot. Oh, like, and if the sun's shining, I can't actually see what's on there. And yet people continue to buy it. And was that because of a lack of a viable alternative, or was the fact that was the defects, the problems, the fact that poor build quality, whatever it might have been, actually not important enough for them to not invest in it? Maybe the way that it looked, I don't know, but I can't think of many products that. Let me put it this way: I can't think of many products where there's a viable alternative that people will then gravitate towards the one that's bad. I mean, like Teams as an example. If you're using Microsoft, you're going to end up using Teams, right? Teams is terrible; it's a piece of crap. But people continue to use it because there is no other viable option in many organisations. That's where you're pushed. But with Fitbit, there are some other options.
So I have a theory on this, actually. I'm just thinking about it. And I think it comes down to individual value, right? Our individual perceptions of value. What is valuable to us is, because when you talk about time efficiency with your product, I think a lot of people value health. Like, is this thing benefiting my mental and physical health? And something like Fitbit is probably, I don't know, but I'm assuming it's one of the cheaper options, or you can get quite an entry level step counter, right? That's quite basic in functionality. We're not talking like a Garmin or an Apple Watch.
Yeah.
And it's a really quick, easy entry level way into achieving that value. I'm now doing something that's good for my health because I bought a Fitbit.
Yeah.
So then if you take a value approach on, are we delivering that? Like, you are, for a short period of time. And then it's a bit like a January New Year's resolution, isn't it?
Yeah.
Do 10,000 steps a day.
Yeah, January gym memberships. I wonder if the peak Fitbit sales in January. I bet there is.
I bet there is, yeah.
Oh no, but Christmas, isn't it? Everyone gets bought them for Christmas.
It's an interesting one. I could talk about this for a while, because one of my favorite products is obviously Whoop, which is a fitness tracker, but it's a very different one and has very different key selling points to stuff like Apple Watches. But anyhow, on a team level.
Yeah.
Actually, just to mention, we were talking about products that don't do what they're supposed to. I think the bane of every workshop and facilitator's existence is Post-it notes that don't stick.
Yeah.
Like that one.
Will yours stick in Agile Manchester? Is that what you're saying?
No, I'm saying I've got a lot of Post-it notes to buy, and I can't find any that are actually sticky. I'm like, you had one job as a product to stick.
I always find that the cheap stationery places do a terrible job. The 3M super stickies are generally pretty sticky, but they don't stick to carpeted walls very well. So
we should start to conclude.
No, I was just going to say, but I wondered, just to help with that conclusion, people watching this now or people watching this after Agile Manchester didn't get the opportunity to go along. What practical tools have they missed out on by not being able to be there?
Okay, I'm going to take the long approach to this answer because we've got a bit of time. I think a couple of the key ones for me are understanding the communication between what is regularly the top level vision and passion for the product and how to get that into a team. So we can look at, in fact, I'm going to bring my screen up for this one. And this is something we will be going through at the workshop. An activity that I have deemed communication matchmakers. So the concepts are around tailored communication, visualization, storytelling, and understanding motivations. So when we're talking about how do we get that message of why our product is valuable and how do we get that into our teams, tailoring that communication. So product one pager, for example, is a tool I think people can use and is quite easy to get together. Quick document that clearly talks through the core elements, keeping everyone aligned on mission and value. Super fast, easy to get out there and easy to get people onboarded. You can then actually combine that with visualization because many people don't like reading just boxes of text. So keeping it visual. There's actually another workshop at Agile Manchester that I will be going to about visual product management and keeping that, just communicating through visuals. Just do it more. Just do it more often. It helps people get onto the messaging of what you're trying to get across a lot easier. Internal demos we do already a lot in Agile and Scrum, but again, it's that visual point of talking people through what our new features are, how we're progressing, how our value is being perceived by customers, how are we putting it out there. And then I won't go through all of them, but understanding motivations, I think, can be one that gets missed a lot. We tend to put out communication at an organizational level or a team level without really communicating to what gets people going, what drives people, what drives the people in our teams. You're going to have people in your team who may not be very motivated by your organizational goals. Like, yeah, it'd be great if everyone was, but sometimes we have people in our teams who just want to come in, get the work done, do a good job, yeah, but then also go home. We all have lives outside of work, and we're not, and a lot of people aren't motivated in the same way as others, and we kind of need to keep that in mind. Storytelling is there's lots of tools around storytelling that we could get into, but I think the key one there, actually, train your team in storytelling in the first place. Like, how do you build that narrative? How do you build that character? How do we empathize with those characters? So there's some quite good tools. Obviously, we've been through identifying metrics that matter, and just, even if you take nothing else away, just look at your metrics and see whether they are actually something that are they tied to the broader goals? Are they can they be strategic and turn data that you're getting your data, and can they actually be brought back into improvements that you can make? What else? I think one that I've not gone through at all is our building teams for value and how cross-functional teams can be so effective at delivering value. I see this a lot, actually, where product teams are separate from the engineering and design teams, or even like I've worked with clients that have got product, project, and engineering and design, and it's all separate departments. And the product team are so far removed from the engineering team. I don't know how the engineering team are getting that communication. How do they ever know what the user research has brought about? Like, how do they get that data? A lot of the time they don't. They get a requirements list or they get a Jira task, and they don't have any of the context around it. Whereas when you put that team together and the product person is directly in a squad or in a team with an engineering department, maybe based around however you want to divide that up and structuralize that around features or users. I know we've spoke about this before about building teams based around different personas and users and how that can have a difference. So yeah, I think they're probably the main ones, just to cover a few.
Just a few.
Just a few.
Let's fix this up. Hold on a second. There we go. Gone for something a bit different. Oh, there we are. Brilliant. So much there. Steph, if people wanted to have this workshop done for their own organisation, so they can't make an Agile Manchester, they've watched a bit of this and thought, yeah, we'd like to get some of that. Is there any way that they can get this delivered within their teams, within their groups, within their own organisation?
Yeah, there's probably a couple of ways actually. So one, you can get in touch with me and 𝐏𝐫𝐨𝐝. The Agile Manchester workshop is very much aligned with APDM, which is Agile Projects and Delivery Management, which is a course that 𝐏𝐫𝐶 offers, will offer shortly. But also, I think I mentioned this to you. I think there's so much content around how you could transform a project mindset into a product and then product agility mindset that I am considering putting it together as a one-day course. A one-day probably in person in the North Manchester area. I think if we do get some interest, I will consider putting that together. I haven't done so yet. But yeah, if you're interested, let us know. I can definitely put that together.
Great. So you can find Steph Ashmore, obviously on LinkedIn, is a good place.
Yes, absolutely. I just realised I only put my first name on this. Steph Ashmore, yes.
Fantastic. Well, really good luck for Agile Manchester.
And I believe, whilst we're here, you're at Agile London. Is that right?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yes. I'm at Agile London next week in the flesh, 2 days, interviewing a number of the speakers there for the Product Agility podcast.
Fantastic.
Yes. So I would say come along, but it's a sellout. Sold out in record time.
Wow.
Yeah. So really, really phenomenal work by the organisers this year. Well, maybe it's maybe an echo of the hard work and dedication of a number of years here, but they sold out. So there's going to be a couple hundred people and some great talks, but it's something a bit different this year. I feel it isn't the standard Agile tropes. There's some genuinely interesting things there, because I think sometimes Agile conferences suffer from not very interesting things, because a lot of it's already been said. That being said, I am also talking at Agile London after Lean Agile London. That's a confusing statement for you. So Agile London being a meetup in London, and me and John Spruce.
You and John Spruce in the same room at the same time?
It happens once a year. No, generally at Agile London, meetup is when it happens. So yes, me and John are sharing the stage together. John is doing a talk on personal branding in LinkedIn. And I'm doing a good talk on it was going to be called Product Vision Cataracts.
Yeah, I know. I saw you.
Yeah, but now it's blurry to brilliant. So it's talking about the effect of having a blurred product vision and the repercussions that has for your ability to deliver something that customers love, but also for organizational complexity and things like OKRs. OKRs generally are rubbish and are just used as another management tool, and proliferate throughout an organization when you don't know who you're serving. So it's just it's a real focus on actually, here are some nice tools and techniques to refocus your vision and kind of remove those cataracts, give the window a clean, so it becomes
what you are is an optician for an optometrist.
Yeah.
For product vision.
Product vision optometrist.
Can that please be put on your email signature?
Yeah. I would do.
Awesome. Yeah, and I forgot to mention, if anyone wants 10% off Agile Manchester tickets, you can use my promo code Steph10, STEPH10. If you wanted last minute tickets for Agile Manchester, I actually don't know if it's sold out. I haven't looked. I'm sure it's still going.
I'll make it nice and easy for people. So I'm putting the code and the link to the event in the comments. So there we go. So if anybody does want to get a ticket, do go along and see Steph, say hi. And yes, see some of the other excellent speakers they'll be having there.
Awesome. Great to see you, Ben.
Yeah, I'm sad that I can't be there, but unfortunately, Manchester's too far away for my
The
home.
London self.
Yeah, another time. But yeah, it's going to be fantastic. Everyone, I hope you've enjoyed mine and Steph's exploration of the workshop, and do reach out to Steph if you want that private workshop, or if you're interested in Agile project and delivery management, a certified course by 𝐼𝐶_Agile, do drop me or Steph a line on LinkedIn. I'm more than happy to answer any of the questions that you have. Steph, anything you'd like to share before we end?
No, I think keep listening to people, keep your ears open, listen to your users, listen to your teams, and you can't go too far wrong.
Lovely. On that note, thank you everyone for listening. We're back again in 2 weeks' time. We're doing a double live stream day. We have Liz Immer for lunchtime and Julie Dirksen for dinner.
What a menu.
Yeah, so Liz Immer's impact mapping with behavioral science.
Mm-hmm.
And then the dinner of Julie, dinner of Dirksen, is going to be behavior change and systems modeling.
Nice.
Yeah.
What date is that? 2 weeks from today?
The 28th of May.
Amazing. That sounds great.
It will be amazing. So great. Be sure you tune in then for more wonderful tips and advice.
From the 𝐏𝐫𝐸 team.
Chief team. Lovely. Thank you, everyone.
Bye.